Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Pilot Money Guys podcast, where our mission is to help clients build and protect wealth to achieve their dreams and goals. This podcast is brought to you by Leading Edge Financial Planning. Without further ado, here is your host, Robert Eklund.
A tip of the cap to you, and thank you for joining us on the Pilot Money Guys podcast for Flight 69, where the Godfather and I are talking about the wealthy mindset. The Pilot Money Guys is the podcast where we discuss an aviation-related topic and, of course, a financial topic. We aim to help folks be better with their money in a lighthearted, financially fun way while diving into the exciting world of aviation. With that, I'm your host, wealth manager, retired Air Force evaluator pilot, now major airline captain, Robert Eklund, a.k.a. Rubber Mallet. My co-captain is, of course, certified financial planner and retired major airline pilot and former Air Force fighter pilot, Charlie Mattingly, a.k.a. the Godfather. Welcome, Godfather. How was your Halloween?
Halloween was exciting. My wife tried to get me to dress up as Scooby-Doo, and I kind of figured a way out of that. You know, I was like, I don't know about that. I think you could do that. You should do that, you know? And she did. So the kids were like Daphne and the other
Fred?
Fred, and we had
Wilma,
yeah,
Daphne.
Yeah. We had Daphne, Wilma, and Fred, and then Lisa was Scooby-Doo.
Scooby?
So,
okay. Yeah. Oh, you were Shaggy. You were Shaggy.
No,
with that beard, you were Shaggy.
Yes, I like it. I'll take it.
Actually, Shaggy doesn't have a beard. That's terrible. That's fun, man. Yeah. I was Indiana Jones. Kiddo was someone from The Boys, Homelander. I'm not familiar, but cool. And then Jana was Black Widow. So we had quite the experience there.
Nice. That's good times.
All right, aviation news. Here we go. V1 rotate. You've likely heard about this, but let's dive into it a little bit anyway. As the New York Post reported, an Alaska Airlines pilot was restrained on an October 22nd flight after he tried to shut off the plane's engines and lunged at an emergency exit while in midair. He told his wife he was depressed, but feared telling his bosses. He apparently had a mental breakdown, hadn't slept in 40 hours, and took psychedelic mushrooms. The pilot was sitting in the cockpit of the Alaska Airlines flight on Horizon Air as a passenger. That's a courtesy for all you non-pilots. That's a courtesy extended to off-duty pilots when they travel on the other airlines or their airlines, what we could refer to as the jump seat. The Federal Aviation Administration, which licenses and regulates pilot conduct in the U.S., allows them to self-report any mental health or physical issues, but pulls them from the cockpit when they do. The Alaska Airlines pilot, who twice tried to down a packed passenger flight during that magic mushroom-fueled meltdown, had refused to disclose the information about his mental health because he was afraid he'd be grounded, a report said. And the pilot was deeply depressed before the bizarre episode, but he told his wife he couldn't afford to tell the airline, according to the Oregon Public Broadcasting. His wife told the outlet, she told him, maybe you should talk to somebody. And then he expressed to her, Sarah, I can't be out of work. She recalled her husband telling her, we have to pay a mortgage. If I go do that, I have to go through all these other hoops, and we can't afford to do that. The veteran pilot had to be restrained during the flight. And obviously, this is a terrible situation. The authorities were called. He was arrested. He's got several accounts of attempted murder. And apparently, this is a bad situation, but apparently, according to other pilots that knew him and had flown with him and were around him, he was a pretty stand-up guy. And it totally unexpected. His wife told people that this was not the Joe she knew. He'd been hired by Virgin America, I think Horizon, then Virgin America, and then upgraded to captain of Alaska Airlines before the father of two and a caring husband went through this unfortunate situation, obviously. And I don't know, any thoughts on this? This is obviously mental health related, and it's going to come up. It's not the first time this has come up. Charlie, obviously we talked about this quite a bit during 2015, 16, during that, what they called the German Wings incident, where a German pilot killed 150 people, including himself, when he purposefully crashed that Lufthansa jet, or German Lufthansa-owned regional German Wings jet into the French Alps. And he was the co-pilot, what we call first officer on that flight, and had a history of severe depression that he had apparently seen doctors for, and they had left notes saying he's unfit to work but obviously he didn't report that to Lufthansa when he did that. But Charlie, any thoughts on this? This is, mental health is such a big concern for everyone right now.
Right. Maybe the silver lining in this tragedy is that it becomes a little more highlighted because pilot suicide happens, and I don't know the rates. I'll tell you the other day, Rob, I was talking to somebody and I said, yeah, one of our pilots committed suicide. I knew someone that did that, and they were like, oh, you mean the guy a month ago? And I was like, what? There was another one? So it happens more than we know, and I think more than we think. And so where my mind goes to is like, man, it's one of those things that I think we got to start taking seriously if we haven't already. So, and I'll admit I've kind of maybe behind the curve on this one because I'm kind of all like, oh yeah, tough it out, whatever. But I think I hate this phrase, but I think times are different now, and I mentioned to you before the show, I was like, years ago, our jobs were different. I think the society was different. I think the information we were receiving on a nonstop basis was non-existent. I think it's messed with our minds some, and I think the conditions are a little different now. I don't fully understand it, but I think there's something there that's significant and that needs to be paid more attention to. And again, it's terribly sad. It's terribly sad that we have pilots at all ever that commit suicide, but it happens. And so, boy, it's just hard to comprehend and wrap our brains around.
Yeah, and I think it's, like you said, something we have to really talk about right now. And it's something that maybe has been around for a while. This is a statistic I always throw out during parties, which no one likes me to throw out, but combat fatigue in World War II. Yeah. Are you familiar with this issue at all, Charlie? A lot of people think all our ancestors were these tough guys, the greatest generation, and they never had any problems.
Right.
Well, 40% of all medical discharges for World War II were related to combat fatigue. Obviously, we're not going through combat, so and this is not a knock on anyone. Yeah. Obviously, this is just the fact that they had, and this was I think in a book called On Combat. That is a fantastic read by a West Point grad and a police officer, I believe. But more than 504,000 troops were lost to psychiatric collapse during the war. Yeah. So obviously they were going through a lot of stuff, but you're going through life, and to your point, times are a little bit different right now. Things are maybe challenging in different ways, and military, suicides always has been a concern for a long time. So I think getting the message out there that you're not alone, and if you think your profession doesn't have any mental health issues, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Pilots are no different than anyone else. I'm going to say that for sure. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
Getting help, and there are outlets out there that, the unions have really been working on for a while now. I think that call for peer-to-peer, pilot-to-pilot networks that can help you with different things. And after that German Wings tragedy, Charlie, the Aerospace Medical Association recommended that greater attention be given to mental health issues by aeromedical examiners and by the aviation community in general, especially to the more common mental health conditions and life stressors that can affect pilots and flight performance. And they noted that approaches to helping pilots with mental issues could provide a safe zone for reporting and discussing mental health issues that would enhance the aviation safety and optimize pilot mental health while minimizing, and this is the important part, because you have a mental issue, depending on what it is. Obviously, you go into work, no big deal. But being a pilot, you obviously put other people's lives at risk. So the I Am Safe acronym that you're supposed to go through, which part of that stress and what your mental preparedness is for the flight, means you might not be able to fly, which is going to directly affect your income, which is why paying pilots the right amount is important, and having the disability and sick leave programs in place to help them with this. Not to mention, obviously, getting help through whatever airline you're with. If it's, I think the Pilot Assistance Network at Delta, the HIMSS program, most ALPA folks have that through, which is the United, obviously, the Project Wingman, and SWAPA has the Project Lift. These are programs out there that are there to help pilots. And hopefully we can educate not just pilots, but also spouses, family members. If you see your pilot, as we say, going through some mental problems, there are resources that are likely going to help them go forward. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be grounded necessarily. And I'll leave it with this. The FAA told CNN in a statement that has invested resources to eliminate the stigma of mental health. And the FAA encourages pilots to seek help if they have a mental health condition, since most, if treated, do not disqualify a pilot from flying. So I think that's super important. There are lots of resources. A lot of these resources that the unions have developed too. You don't even give your name. I think you just it says you don't give your name, and then the records aren't kept beyond the date which it happened. So yeah, lots of good stuff in there that we need to foot stomp, I think, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's being more awareness and more resources, and that's always good. And reach out if there's any doubt, and maybe there's some good that comes out of it. If someone's in doubt, about how they're feeling, maybe they get some good mental coaching, and maybe they get back on track, and that's hopefully all that comes of it. But otherwise, maybe there's some help that's out there that you can get as well.
And I'm going to break away for our commercial, but I think this is a great segue into what we're talking about, a wealthy mindset. I hate the fact that, obviously he didn't do the right things there, but I hate that the pilot got himself into a situation where he felt like he couldn't ask for help because he had to pay his mortgage. And that's part of this. Hey, how do you structure your life and do some of the stuff we're going to talk about, Charlie?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Quick commercial break. Folks, let's bring it down a notch and get real for a second. Are you getting ready to spend some time with your family over the holidays? This is one of the reasons why money is important to us, to give us time with those we love. Knowing your retirement and life goals are on track can have significant positive impacts on you and your family, and may I say the world, and I may. We stand ready to help as fiduciaries, providing objective fee-only financial planning and investment management. If you would like some help in this facet of your life, you can reach us at charlie@leadingedgeplanning.com or robert@leadingedgeplanning.com. Our website is leadingedgeplanning.com. You guessed it.
Nice.
Again, that's leadingedgeplanning.com. Okay, break. Fight on. Godfather, what is a wealthy mindset? What is this thing you speak of?
I know. So I wrote an article recently for Aero Crew News. So go check that out. It's I titled it, "Do you have a wealthy mindset, or are you setting yourself up for financial mediocrity?" And based on our conversation that we just had,
great
Rob,
article, by the way.
Yes,
great article.
I think Charlie, it's gone viral, if that's such a thing. I don't know, but anyway,
yes, tens of people have read it.
Tens of tens. But the subtitle there, or are you setting yourself for financial mediocrity? Maybe another subtitle based on our previous conversation is, or are you allowing money to set you up for even more difficulties? Because it does. Money is a source. Financial security is a source of some of these mental issues that we're talking about. So maybe we can have some kind of impact along those lines. And I love this idea of a mental coach, if you will. And pilots, please don't turn it off. Professional athletes have a mental coach. So let's just get that out there. All of them do. And they know the value of being mentally resilient, and you don't have to have any like mental coaching per se is just having the right mindset to be successful. Let's just throw that out there and simplify that. But what I thought about was, one person asked me, well, like, what is it that you all see when you're working with people that differentiates someone that, approaches retirement and they're just really successful and they're going to have a great retirement versus someone that maybe is less so? What is the differentiator? And I started to think about that. I was like, well, that's a great question, because sometimes it's not necessarily the investment return or investment rate of return that we think is key to our success in retirement, right? Sometimes it is the framework, the decisions that I make. What we'll talk about today is, how do I set myself up to have a positive environment around me that I can make great decisions and enjoy my life and be successful. And a lot of times, Rob, the money follows. It's not necessarily some great tactic or gimmick. It's that this attitude of abundance or a good mental attitude of wealth leads to wealth, meaning money, and contentment. And that's a really difficult combination to achieve. And that's really what we're trying to do in our business. But what do you think about that, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's so important. I love that you wrote this article, and I really want people to go check that out. Aero Crew News, I believe .com, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be .com. But this is something that we do with our clients really early on. And I think it's so important. What is their relationship with money?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get into some of that. But I know that, Atomic Habits, you love that book, Charlie, and it's so appropriate in this in this conversation.
Absolutely. I was reading that book, and a couple of the things that we're going to talk about today just jumped out at me that relate to our successful finances and having a mindset of wealth. But let me start with a couple of things. What is wealth, and what do we mean by that? You could say rich, you could say wealth, whatever. What I mean by that is, first of all, we do have money to supply our needs and maybe some wants and wishes, but money is great because it removes obstacles. But along with money, we have to have the right mindset, or we will be miserable. We will not be successful. And that's what I define as true wealth, is just the money along with contentment, gratitude, an attitude of gratitude that you've talked about so much. Relationships come in there. If you don't have those things, physical health, if you don't have those things, in my opinion, your wealth is no good. And so, true wealth to me encompasses all of those things. And that's what I love about, the work we do, Rob, is we try to bring all those other factors into the equation.
Absolutely. And it's more complex. I don't want to say it's complex, but it's more complex than just saying, you say, what's wealth to you? And you say, well, it's doing what I want with who I want for as long as I want. Yeah. Well, great. Who do you want to be around? What do you want to do? How long do you want to do it? You got to actually get to those granular details. So don't just stop with the cliche.
I know. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty things that people can use to change their mindset. One of the stories in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, it jumped out at me, and it reminded me of what you just talked about in World War II, where the soldiers really did have some mental challenges, obviously. Can you imagine going through that? But Vietnam was the same way. In fact, in Atomic Habits, James Clear says that over 15% of U.S. soldiers in Vietnam were heroin addicts. And so that's one of the outlets that they use to cope and with the conditions. But the interesting thing is, counter to current beliefs about addiction, only 5% of them became re-addicted within a year, and just 12% relapsed within 3 years once they returned to the U.S. In other words, approximately 9 out of 10 soldiers who used heroin in Vietnam eliminated their addiction overnight. Now, why the heck are we talking about addiction? And Rob, if we study, or you're around, or people that have had drug issues or addiction issues in the past, you can learn a lot from them. I don't care who you are, what business you're in, but they have been through some stuff. And man, it's pretty amazing. But the results of this, again, contradicted traditional research about formation of habits. And so the upshot here is, well, what kind of habits how do we create good habits then? How is it that these people didn't carry this addiction with them? And in other words, how can we be successful? And that the upshot here is that because of their drastic change in environment, Rob, they were able to eliminate this potentially life-threatening addiction, which is powerful. It's like, what? I can set up my environment such that I'm going to be successful enough that I'm not even addicted to heroin if I was before. So financially should be easy compared to that, right? I mean, that's just
right.
Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say before I turn it over to you for a minute is just that the point here, and he makes this great point in the book. He says, scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control. It turns out that those individuals aren't all that different from those who are struggling. Instead, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. So if you're struggling on the financial stuff, Maybe you feel like we've got a lot of airline pilots that make a lot of money. And sometimes the budgeting, the cash flow, I'll say we feel like maybe we're living paycheck to paycheck sometimes. And that is something that you don't have to be a self-control superpower hero to change that. You just have to change your environment, change your framework for decision making. That's my intro, Rob. We're going to get into some specifics in a second. But is that fascinating or what? I mean, to me, it just blows me away.
It really is. I mean, that is just an amazing statistic that's out there, and being able to structure your lives to be wealthier and healthier and all that stuff is just something I think we should all work on probably a little bit more.
Absolutely, man. So, they started off with this question: what is it about the people that we work with and they become successful? And I think my answer is this: the key to financial prosperity and wealth building is intentionally creating a disciplined financial environment in your life. It's not like trying to get some fancy investment, or clearly you want to have a great investment game plan.
Sure.
But nonetheless, it's about a lot of other stuff. And let's just get into a couple ways here. I say a couple because we're going to go real time. Maybe we strike a few out, but I've got 6 that I wrote in the article. And the first one, Rob, is just set up a framework for making financial decisions. And here's what I say: like, if you don't have to have a fancy budget or spending plan. Maybe it'd be better if you did. I don't know. I'm working on it myself. But one thing I think to help make decisions, especially if you're married, it's always a little challenging, but maybe even if you're single, because you don't have somebody cross-checking you going, hey, dude, don't spend that. So here's what I wrote. If you can answer yes to the following questions, then you get to spend whatever you want. Is your high interest debt paid off? Is your emergency fund fully funded and complete? Are you maximizing your 401k? Are you funding your back to a Roth IRA? Are you working on making progress towards college funding if you have kids? I think that was 5 questions. If you can check yes to those things, do whatever the heck you want, Rob. What do you think?
I love it. Yeah. He's going down that kind of what we've talked about on a couple of podcasts. As a matter of fact, go listen to Flight 68. We talk about the financial order of operations, or where your next dollar should go, or, hey, you just got a big paycheck. What should you do with it? And those 5 questions are just phenomenal because it's a very easy way. Hey, have I done these things? I haven't done that. I better go do that before I get into buying that Ferrari, which everyone wants. Yeah,
absolutely. The Ferrari comes back again.
Yes. And the other thing I think of when we talk structure too is obviously asking yourselves those questions and building the framework for yourself. It goes back to that. I love that thought and the idea of discipline equals freedom. Jocko Willink has written a book about it. I think Ryan Holiday's got another book on it. It's all about, hey, if I'm disciplined with these 5 parts of my life, then I have the freedom to go do other things with my money. But be disciplined in these 5, and it gives you more freedom later on. And I also think automate your savings and your investing. That makes it, a fire and forget weapon. You don't even see it. And that's how, that's how people who live in New York City, who have drastically higher cost of living amounts than I do here in Colorado, how they're still able to do some things and live where I'm like, how do you even live? It's because they've automated. They don't even see it, right? They've got it done, and they obviously pivot and spend their money on only the things they absolutely need. If they don't have a ton of money, obviously. The other things is the financial order of operations, which we talked about. The other part that I love talking about is being intentional with your money. I don't say get away from being a consumer, because we're a consumer country, but I think you need to be more intentional with what you buy and think about how it's going towards your values, going towards your purpose, and how long you're going to use it. That's not saying don't use it or don't go out there and buy it, but ask yourself those 5 questions that you talked about, Charlie, and then try to be more intentional. Just don't buy something because you need to. And I know you're going to get into a fancy term.
Well, I love what you said. And, the practical thing there is, like, when you go to buy something, sleep on it for a few days, a month or whatever. And then after a month, if you go, I think that really would bring value to me, then do it, if you can say yes to those other things. But anyway, you've already talked about the second principle, which is the KISS principle. We talked about this all the time. Keep it simple, stupid, make it automatic, make it out of sight. and just start those savings, early and often, and then don't make it hard on yourself. Like the whole concept here, set up your environment such that you're set up for success, and I think you'll do better. So that's number 2. You've already hit on that really well. Number 3, I love this, and it's a title of a book or 2 probably, but Stay Humble, Hungry, and Smart. Patrick Lencioni is an expert when it comes to organizational health, teamwork. He's written, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and all kinds of other books that are great in a business world. But I think it also applies to our finances, because oftentimes type A personalities and all, pilots and doctors and lawyers and all the other people that are just very successful, they're go-getters, they solve problems. And you know what? I solve problems, or let's say, I'm a pilot, doctor, whoever. I solve problems that no one else can. And that's probably true in our profession. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be successful. But the market doesn't quite work that way. There's just thousands of people every second making transactions, hundreds of thousands. They're trying to solve the same problem you are. It's the most efficient market in the world. So just stay humble, hungry, smart as it pertains to investing. Don't try to seek out the magic potion. Don't try to solve the unsolvable problem. Just be disciplined. Like we've already said before, keep your savings, where it should be. Get a plan. Don't do anything fancy. And that's counterintuitive and very difficult advice for sometimes our tribe to follow, because, man, we solve problems and get shit done. Strike that out, maybe. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that on, but it just, I couldn't help it.
I think you're okay. I'll allow it. Where's my gavel?
But anyway, that's the
Where's
thing.
my rubber mallet? I need
that's right. Strike it out. But when it comes to the market, Rob, it's like, no, don't do that. Just be disciplined. It's the long game, and it's blocking and tackling. So that's principle, number 3 is, humble, hungry, and smart. I think will keep you safe in the world of investing in wealth as well.
I love that. That reminds me of, we've said this before on the podcast here, but Charlie Munger probably puts it the best when he says, those who keep learning will keep rising in life. And he's just be comfortable with being a lifelong learner, and you're going to do better, which obviously is a shout out to my mom. She's a teacher, so she'll be pretty proud of that sentiment if she listened to the show, but she doesn't. So we're okay on that front, Charlie. But I think it's so important. Hey, be smart, keep learning, but be humble and realize that your behavior drives higher expected returns first and foremost. And that is what you said, not trying to be smarter than the market. Maybe do some tilts here and there, but don't get too fancy. Don't get crazy.
Yeah, we often see people that are the most susceptible to fraud, financial fraud, are big time thinkers, big time problem solvers, because they're out there looking for those solutions. And there's someone out there that will sell you a solution. Yeah. Right.
Snake oil.
Yes. There you go. All right. Number 4 is, all right, Rob, help me out here. My French is not so good. The Diderot.
Diderot effect.
Yeah, but Diderot. Diderot. Yeah. He's a Frenchman named after him a long time ago. But it's basically a phenomenon, again, from the Atomic Habits is how I learned about this effect. But I was like, this is perfect. I heard someone the other day talking about this very thing, like, hey, I went to buy this one thing, and then because I bought that, let me give you a real example. Let me back up a second. The Diderot effect is a phenomenon that occurs when acquiring a new possession that leads to a spiral of consumption that results in the acquisition of even more possessions. In other words, it means that buying something new can cause a chain reaction of buying more and more things, because a new item makes one feel like one needs other things to go with it or to keep up with it. As a result, we end up buying things that our previous selves never needed to feel happy or fulfilled, I'll add, in the first place.
Yes.
And to me, this is the Millionaire Next Door book. He's like, you move into the fancy schmancy whatever, and now you got to be a member of the country club. Now you got to drive a certain car. And now you got to, so it's like nothing wrong with any of those things, by the way. But that's just kind of a fascinating thing that I think we all fall into occasionally,
Yeah. And try not to get sucked into that spiral, just because you got new shoes doesn't mean you need new pants, a new hat, new shirt. and all that stuff. And apparently the story goes, I don't know if this is true or not, but what I read about the Diderot effect, Charlie, was he was a French aristocrat. He got some kind of new dressing gown before they had suits, I guess. And when he got the new dressing gown, he realized everything else around him looked like crap.
Yeah.
So he had to buy everything else was new, and he went bankrupt because he bought everything. The spiral effect drove him right to bankruptcy.
Absolutely. Yeah. The number 5, I think, is really interesting. And it reminds me of sports, where I think Nick Saban is known for saying, like, we won the game. In fact, John Wooden says the same thing. Hey, the score says we won, but man, we just got lucky today. And so there's still some things that we need.
That's even better in investing, I think.
It is. Yeah. It's like sometimes that final score doesn't tell the whole story, and sometimes you just got lucky. And I think every once in a while people can.
Unless we're talking Air Force football this year.
That's a good point. They are not lucky. They're awesome. So, what I think about this, Rob, is our, there you go. Go, what's the chant? Go Falcons, go Falcons. And, but anyway, I think where this really comes into play is a lot of times it's super important to understand the difference between investing and speculation. Investing is a long-term thing with a diversified portfolio that, quite frankly, has in our history of our country has been positive. Okay, over the longer term, it's gone up. Now there may become a time when it doesn't. I don't know. Speculation is very different in that usually it involves one stock or one investment. And quite frankly, we may have some education about that stock or whatever, but in the end, it's a guess. We could make a guess about an airline. We could make a guess about Apple, but there could always be a factor that we cannot anticipate that comes true that destroys that stock price. And that's just something you can't account for. So sometimes people make a speculation, they do well, they get lucky, and then that perpetuates this behavior of like, oh, I think I've got some skill here. And it's very difficult to distinguish that. So just be on guard.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of reminds me of a story. You might want to strike this, Charlie, but it reminds me of the World War II story of in England when they were getting bombed. There was an effect where you went through one bombing and you didn't get hit. Yeah. You just kind of like, absolutely, I'm not going to get hit. And for the most part, you were right. But doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily at least go to the bomb shelter. I think there's some kind of storyline that equates to what we're talking about.
Yep, absolutely. I think that skill and luck thing, it applies to a lot of different facets of our life. Number 6, and this is the last one, and I know it's one of our favorites, but it's treat all aspects of your life like investing. In other words, like you just talked about, learning. Learning is like an investment. As you learn and you increase in skills or knowledge or whatever, or learning about whatever, investing in family, friends, investing in your health, all those have returns that are just as important as the wealth, as the money. Because like we started out saying, what good is a ton of money if you don't have anything else to go with it? You will not be happy. You will not have contentment. And people go, oh, that's just a cop out. You're just trying to make people that don't have money feel better. It's not, because we've seen people that have had a lot of money. And sometimes they're not happy, which is a shame, right? I mean, it happens.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. Yeah, I know those are all good facets there. And you go into more detail in the paper, so go check that out for sure. One of the things I love talking about is when you're talking about wealth and a wealthy mindset, it helps to surround yourself with positive people and people that are going to push you and believe in you and maybe make you smarter, stronger, faster, whatever. Not talking on the investing side, which is why I hang out with Charlie all the time. Yes. And Charlie, Kevin, Betsy, Jason, these guys make me smarter all the time. So this is,
we got a good team. That's for sure.
Having the team around us, Lisa, obviously, it goes on. Mark, we've got a great team, and that means in your life, you want to develop a great team, obviously. So surround yourself with the people who are going to do that. And if you find people in your life, obviously if they're family, it's more difficult. But if you can surround yourself with the Charlies of the world, do it. because they're going to make you better. And that's something I think will help your wealthy mindset as the people you're around. The other thing that I throw at you, Charlie, and this one gets a little soft, a little fuzzy, but we start talking about love. And it sounds so cliche, but it's probably the most important thing that we do, and how we do things. It centers around love. And when I think about wealth building, you think about, what do you love to do? It would help if you loved what you did. And if you're young, hey, maybe you can design your lifestyle design around something you love. If you're older and you're not going to change it, that's okay. At least like what you do, I think is helpful. Make it easier on yourself when you're going to work, whether it be flying or being a doctor or whatever. Make it easier on yourself. Again, kind of gets back to that principle of being able to love yourself and take care of yourself, but it'll help you be more successful. It'll make you be a better doctor, pilot, lawyer. It'll help you be a better husband if you're taking care of yourself. And I think it really should, we talk about money and values and aligning those in the finance world. And I think it's super important that we talk about what you love to do, and what you love is where you should put your money.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're saving for retirement, you love yourself, you love your spouse, and you're going to take care of yourself. And that is perfectly okay. So I know a lot of you are saying, what the heck, Rubber Mount? What do you mean by this? But that's all it means, is what you spend your money on is what you should love. And going further, you don't want to be narcissistic and just love yourself, but caring for yourself means that you're able to care for others better. And this means investing in yourself, in your future, in your health, physical and mental, obviously, foot stomper there. If you're charitably inclined, obviously you love helping whatever charity you're you're giving money to. And that abundance mentality that we talk about so much, I think it's helpful if you start from a position of love, as cheesy as that sounds. And if you go out there and you do that, you're going to be more successful, is my guess. So I think wealthy people have more love and more good feelings about money. No, it's not everyone. Obviously, there's lots of rich, whatever holes out there that are not nice. But I think in general, what we determine it as rich and wealthy is someone who's more well-rounded and has a good relationship with money, which is so important. And again, that's what we talk about with our clients, kind of circling back there. This is something that we have to sometimes deconstruct with clients a lot of times, because a lot of times our clients' relationship with money, maybe they grew up in a household that said, we don't talk about money, or money doesn't grow on trees. And they come from a scarcity mindset. And it's helpful if you develop that abundance mindset, not to say that discipline equals freedom and the discipline is going to lead you to wealth. That's still an abundance mindset. That's not a scarcity mindset, but it helps to create that abundance mindset and cultivate a spirit of thankfulness, being thankful for what you have, and go forth. If the goal is just money, I think you're not going to get there very easily, if ever. I think it's easier to get there from and these are soft skills, people. So I apologize. We'll get into more blocking and tackling and tactics. And these are some of the things that Charlie and I were former Air Force officers. So we think objective, strategy, tactics. These are, you're getting to the objectives and strategy part here. And then once you've got that wired, once we've deconstructed that and thought about, hey, how are we doing these things? What are your values? What's your purpose? All those things that we talk about early on, maybe in the planning process. Then we start getting into the tactics, which can be fun. Hey, you can almost make it a game, at that point where you get into the tactics portion. If I raise my savings rate by 1% a year, I can be a millionaire 7 years faster. Some of those things get in there. But first, you got to take care of the objectives and where your foundation is, which is that abundance mindset. So that's all I got, Charlie.
That's it. That's good stuff. And it's just like you said, it starts with the mindset of wealth. You mentioned something in there that really is, I think, just vital. And that is that we love ourselves. And people go, that's silly. Of course I love myself. But if we have an identity, if we do love ourselves or think highly of ourselves, then we have an identity of an abundance. We have an identity of what is a great husband. What does a great husband look like? That's going to be me. And I'm going to do the things a great husband do because I have that identity, or I should adopt it. And the same with wealth is, what does a wealthy person do? I'm a wealthy person, even without money. I'm a wealthy person, so I'm going to do what wealthy people do. You see what I'm saying? If you have this identity, then it leads to the actions that then become reality. And so I think that's really what I thought about as you were talking about first loving yourself, having that identity, whether it be a good husband, good father, wealthy person, and then going, what do those actions look like then? And I think that can help lead to those.
I love it. Any other final thoughts before we wrap it up?
That's it. That's all I got.
Awesome, man.
I gotta do some more studying to learn some more stuff. That's all I know.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got. A couple of quotes for you to ponder on your drive, flight, commute, or daily ritual. This one's from the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Getting rich begins with the right mindset, the right words, and the right plan. What we're talking about today. This one is actually a two-parter. The first one's from Oprah Winfrey. Be thankful for what you have. You'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never, ever have enough. And Eckhart Tolle said it a different way. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. That is it. Let us be the first to welcome you to our final destination of Flight 69, the wealthy mindset. We also talked about mental health. Hopefully, you are thankful for having listened to this podcast. And if you are and have an abundance mentality, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and or leave us a review. We aim to help people be better with their money and of all things that come with it. So help us by leaving us a rating. Please shoot us any questions you'd like us to cover. And remember, as Emerson said, the world makes way for those who know where they are going. And as we say, so plan accordingly. From all of us at the Pilot Money Guys, we wish you smooth rides and soft in the zone landings.
Thank you for listening to the Pilot Money Guys podcast. It has been our pleasure to share some information with you today. Give us a call to discuss absolutely any investment question you may have. Click on the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit leadingedgeplanning.com to learn more. Take care.
Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Leading Edge Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.